Hi, everyone.
You ready? Okay.
Okay, so as I said, this is the FY26 budget. I'm going to do a little bit of the background story that I give every single year as we do this.
Yeah.
So today is March 12th. It's the public budget hearing. This is the opportunity after we present the budget tonight to ask us any questions that you want or anything that you don't feel that we answered. On March 24th, our school committee is going to be voting on the budget. I also want to let you know that on March 24th, Director of Finance and Operations Bernier and I will be going to UMass because the joint House Ways and Means are going to be meeting at UMass to talk about local aid. And we have some rural school shirts if anybody would like them. And if anybody would like to join us, we have the details. We've asked Mr. Trasco's government students from last semester and this semester if they would like to go with us as well to see government in action. And it's really going to be interesting because they're going to be talking about local aid. Today, we also got a letter sent out from MASBO, MARS, and Massachusetts Association of School Committees, Massachusetts Association of School Business Officers, and Massachusetts Association of Regional Schools that are really pushing all the legislators out there that they need to be funding. Last year it was a 211, and they were calling it Project 211, 211 school districts in full harmless. Even with all of the advocacy last year, 21 went into hold harmless this year, and it's putting an unnecessary burden on the towns. And so one of the things that we're really going to be pushing on March 24th is to use what they call part of the FY24 fair share money and FY26 to release the money to help these 232 towns who are in hold harmless. So as always, I'm going to start with our educational initiatives. We took on some pretty big ones recently, if you want to see real change, you don't just keep skipping to new initiatives, you really dive in and you master your skill. So it's going to look the same. The literacy professional development is we're going to continue the science of reading. It will be year 5. Our teachers have asked for this, we have listened. We are going to start incorporating some writing into it. And then we're also working on Open SciEd for the science in grades. Open SciEd in 7 through 12. We're also going to continue with our data-informed teaching practices. That's at all grade levels. It's really looking at data and meeting students where they are. And our multi-tiered system of support, which is social, emotional, math, reading, all of our subjects that we meet kids where they are. About 80 to 85% of students will respond to just your regular curriculum. They'll just respond to your regular classroom management. Got another 15%, and it's like a tier 2. They might need something just a little bit different in math, a little bit different, a little tweak, a little small group, a little, and then there's 5% who really need more, and that's that tier 3 instruction. We've been working on that, I would say, since pre-COVID as well. So these initiatives are the same. We're still working towards them. And this is what we kept in mind when we were building the budget this year. As you know, our foundation enrollment, I show the same slide. I just keep adding to it. It keeps declining this year. We had a significant decline because we had all of the out-of-district vocational students leave our foundation budget. The out-of-district vocational students, if they reside in Southwick, they went to the town of Southwick. If they resided in Granville, they were now part of Granville's town. Likewise, those two communities also received Chapter 70 funding. And you'll also see later that their minimal local contributions, not only did it not go up this year by the usual 500,000, it dropped by 300,000. So this is a big reset year. to get the monies where they belong, figure out how all this out-of-district transportation is going to work and out-of-district vocational, and bring forward a budget that we can work with next year. So over the course of the past 2 years, Southwick saw a decline in 39 students, Holland 14. That's a significant drop in students, and you're going to see that reflected in assessments. And Granville lost 25, which we'll also see reflected in assessments. So before I get into the budget, I just wanted to just give you a quick snapshot of what we call net school spending. And as I have promised, this is my 9th year, I'll always bring forward a fiscally responsible budget. I feel we've done a really great job accessing grants, using our grant money, our circuit breaker money, our IDA money wisely. But if you look at where Southwick, Tolling, Granville Regional School District is, we are in this first block. I can't, my green light, okay, is right here. We're in the 100. It's not even letting me go.
It's like on your ceiling.
Oh, there it is. Can you see that little green light? We're like right here we're 102. And the school districts that we are surrounded by that are also at 100 and 102 are the districts that are receiving significant student opportunity money. Springfield, Malden, Holyoke, Chicopee, Taunton. There is Spencer, East Brookfield, which is an outlier like us, but that is where we are. And then I went closer and I looked at where other school districts are that are around us. So if you can see, I'm not going to go through all of them. You have these in handouts. But if you look at the school district that's closest to us, it is West Springfield. And they are a SOA district. And then you see East Hampton and then Westfield. Westfield is also a Student Opportunity Act district. They're called gateway cities. And then they go all the way up to Berkshire Hills, which is at 199. And I didn't put Lennox in there because they were over 200. But if you look at where Long Meadow is, they're at 148, Ludlow 134, Agawam 154, Hamden Wilbraham 130, and I think Gateway's at 123. So those are the districts that are part of our LPVEC and that we'd like to compare ourselves to. Okay. So the governor's proposed budget is based on our foundation enrollment numbers. You will see that the district required local contributions. Southwick saw a $57,000 increase. Last year, they saw a $500,000 increase. This was $57,000. Granville saw a $267,679 decrease in minimum local contribution, and Tolland saw a $90,804 a decrease. So when all is said and done, we took a significant hit. Without it going up 500,000, it went down 300,000. So already building this year's budget, not only were we expecting additional 500,000, we didn't get that 500,000, we went down. So we were like at $800,000 less than what we expected to see in required local contributions. As we state every single year, you're seeing this as a trend across the state. Special out-of-district costs are rising at a pace that we just can't keep up with. The mental health is a big piece of it. We're seeing more and more students go to therapeutic settings. That's what we're seeing the most. As we said, we've also created 3 in-district programs. We created the social emotional at Powdermill. Right now, we're not seeing a savings in it, but we have students moving up from Woodlands coming to Powdermill next year, and we will see a savings. The social emotional at Woodland, we're seeing a $351,000 savings, and the program for children with autism, we're seeing a $235 savings at Woodland. The program for children with intellectual impairment, we always had, but we're still seeing a $214,000 savings. I also want to add that the teachers for these 3 programs, we added those programs when we had ESSER funding. We know the ESSER funding disappeared. These 3 teachers are being paid for out of rural school aid. So that is how we are spending the rural school aid money that we get. It's by keeping kids in district and not sending them out with enormous costs that are attached to them. So then we're going to go into the elephant in the room, which is why are we seeing increases to our assessments when we just took $1.2 million out of the budget for out-of-district vocational students? It is a great question because we were looking at it ourselves and we needed to come up with a why because that is a big question. So if you have this sheet, took this sheet when you came in. Everybody have this sheet. This will help you kind of go through what it is that I'm talking about right now. This is like our budget in an overview this year. So our health insurance, unfortunately, we saw a $267,000 increase to our health insurance. That was about a 14.24. Is it like
14.26% increase.
They're usually between 1 to 4%. This was a significant increase to our health insurance. The why behind it is there's not as many primary care doctors. More and more people are going to hospitals. And the biggest cost of this is because of those GLP drugs, those magic weight loss drugs that we all love. Well, it's affecting everybody's health insurance. Last year, we were able to use a significant amount of money in school choice to the tune of about $1.5 million in school choice. And we used about $650,000 in our E&D. Well, school choice is a revolving account, and when it's gone, it's gone. And we can't keep replenishing it at the rate that we're spending it. So although we were able to put $1.5 million in school choice last year, when asked to bring forward a more conservative budget, what we did was we took 4 administrators out of the operating budget and we just moved them over to school choice for a year. And you're going to notice this year we can't afford to keep them there, so we moved 4 of them back into the operating budget. So that has an impact on the bottom line as well. We have raises of about $500,000, the out-of-district special education, $325,000, the decrease in minimal local aid in Chapter 70, $392,000, maintenance increase of $120,000. We had an increase in maintenance line items in maybe 5-6 years. And school choice in charter school, we saw an increase of $165,000. So if you look at that one sheet that I gave you, right here, if you look at the column right here, that tells you all of our revenue sources. So when you add up all of our revenue sources, it comes to $27,777,976. When you look at our budget, it's $28,929,812. And if you look over to the Y, I have all of those listed because all of our fixed cost increases went up $2.672 million. That is a significant cost increase with just things that we have no control over. So in order to bring forward this budget, we did make some cuts that were straight out of the operating budget. We have a retirement that we are not replacing next year. One, we tried. We couldn't even find a licensed teacher to take that position at the regional school. We had an instructional coach that left last year to become a principal. We didn't fill that position this year, and we are not filling it next year. We also had, when we were looking at cuts for Unit A, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 additional cuts out of Unit A. They're at the regional school. And when we did that, my philosophy is you got to cut as far away from the classroom as possible. And as an admin team, we looked at everything. And unfortunately, one of the coaches we cut. So we had 4 coaches in the budget last year. We're down to 2 coaches next year. So their time is going to be spread thin. But that was for an overall cut of $609,650. that was in the operating budget last year that we are not putting in the operating budget this year.
Yeah,
Yes, please, yes.
Instructional coach.
Okay, good question. So an instructional coach, so when we went back to our reading initiative, so we have a literacy coach, and the science of reading is really formulaic, it's really scientifically based. You have like 5 different groups in your classroom, and it could be on phonics, they could be on fluency, they could be on lots of different things. So what the instructional coach does is they go in and they work with the teachers to help them formulate their groups, look at their data, and with new teachers, teach them how to teach the science of reading. We have a math STEM coach at the elementary level, and we were really going through our math initiative. And then we have one at the regional school who's more like a pedagogical coach. She can kind of fluidly go through all the classes and kind of just teach. Because you don't really have content coaches at the regional school because you can't. There's so many things to teach.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So when you finally look at the overall impact to the budget, we're going to go over Nick is going to go over the 2 assessment sheets with you in a minute, but you're going to see a fixed cost increase of health insurance of $267. We had 4 admin positions that we had to replace in the operating budget. There was that 1-year temporary move to school choice. We had a decrease in offset with E&D for an overall net difference of $193,000. We saw a $300,000 decrease in minimal local contributions, increase in special ed, and 8 full-time positions cut from the previous year's budget, which is the Unit A and coaches. I do want to tell you there is a difference from when we presented this to school committee. We did have a grant-funded interventionist that we were not going to be filling, but it would have a serious impact on our K-1-2 students, and that's when they really need to learn to read. And if we don't get them then you're going to see an even more significant increase in special ed referrals going on. So we made the decision to bring back an additional reading interventionist at Woodland School. So that is a change from our first presentation. And we'll stop there.
Do the capital at the end.
Yeah, we'll do the capital.
Okay, should we pause for questions now, or should
Yeah.
we go through the sheets first?
Any questions so far?
All right.
All right, so I'm gonna ask you to turn your attention to the budget summary sheet that was handed out in the garage. And what I'll do, I'll start at the top. The top section is expected or anticipated revenues. The first 6 lines are the assessments for each of the 3 towns. They're broken down by, I guess what I'd call their regular assessment. And then the other line would be the debt service for the school building project that took place several years ago. We break it out that way purposely. Underneath that, we move on to Medicaid reimbursement, which we feel will be pretty flat. We don't anticipate that increasing very much. Regional transportation reimbursement, we figure about $800,000. If you take a look at the cherry sheet right now, the governor's House 1 budget proposal has that number higher, but her proposal also has that funded at 95%, which that's never going to happen. It's never happened historically. So we feel it was better to come in with a conservative number there and, anticipate that as the budget goes through the state process, that number is going to lower. Next is our Chapter 70 aid, which is actually going down from this current year. If you look at this summary sheet, it looks like it's going up by $398, but the number from FY25 that it's being compared to was the governor's House 1 budget figure. As the budget went through the process and the state finally landed on it sometime in July, that Chapter 70 number for us and many other districts around the state went up because they increased the minimum per pupil from, I think it started at $30 a student here to $104, which is what, we actually got this year. So if you add that to the number in the FY25 column, you come to what we actually got. What is proposed for next year for us is actually a decrease due to the vocational students being part of the towns of, Southwick and Granville coming up. So, it's about a almost $93,000 difference, which I actually called the state about this because I've never seen a district chapter 70 funding go down. So I talked to their director of finance up there and I said, I thought we were a hold harmless district. I mean, forgive me, I'm new. I come from a municipality, regional things, a little new for me. But he explained that, it's because that foundation enrollment dropped so much for us as a district. Now, if all of those students, they graduated and then the incoming kindergarten class was much smaller, we wouldn't have seen this decrease. We would have still been hold harmless, but it's because those students went to other towns' foundation enrollments. Essentially that funding got moved. We anticipate that evening out next year, as Superintendent Willard referenced earlier. This is a reset year. Things are looking different than they have in the past and probably not like they'll look next year because now there's sort of a new baseline, if you will. And if we're a hold harmless district, we would go back to that next year because I can't anticipate a dramatic change in enrollment, at least not of students shifting to towns. I mean, I feel like the vocational enrollment will probably be somewhat similar, give or take a few students. So on top of the $800,000 decrease in required minimum local contribution, you add another almost $93,000 to the chapter 70, and we already start off with almost $900,000 of revenue that was anticipated, say back in December, but we won't get. Our charter school tuition reimbursement you see will go up, and that's a result of probably 1 or 2 students attending charter schools. We don't have that many here. I think it's like 6 or 7. But the way the state charter school reimbursement formula works as part of the Student Opportunity Act, you get reimbursement in a student's first 3 years of attending a charter school. So say we had a 4th grader here next year, they're going to a charter school, we would get 100% reimbursement for their tuition in year 1. We would get 60 or so, I think it's 60% in year 2, and down to 30% in year 3. After that, nothing. So when you see an increase like that in the charter school reimbursement, it means that there's an increase in students leaving here and going to charter schools, albeit a small one. We do not have many at all. Next line is our E&D, which Superintendent Willard told you earlier. We're increasing the use of that to $900,000 to help offset the operating budget. And then your local tuition and fee charges will remain flat. We're not going to be increasing any fees. And we anticipate our tuition preschool enrollment to be, about the same as it usually is. So all in all, that brings us to a total of $28,929,812 in revenue, anticipated revenue. Onto the expenditures area there. This is where the budget's broken down by line items or specific buckets. You'll see general administration comes in at about 2.7 million. You may be wondering why such a large increase there. Almost $400,000 seems like a lot for general administration to increase, but that's not just administrators' salaries, like the semantics of that might make it seem like that's what it is, but that's where all of our salary reserve money lives. It would contain, administrative salary raises, but also retroactive pay for custodians and paraprofessionals whose contracts were just recently settled. We're currently negotiating with our Unit A staff. So we can't put that salary reserve money in the schools yet because we don't know what the percent increase is going to be. We don't know what's going where. There's more teachers at the regional school than there are at the other 2. So we can't distribute that money until that contract is settled. So that's why it's living in that administration bucket. Next year, you will not see such an increase like that. It'll be minimal because, hopefully the contracts will all be settled and then that salary money would just be in the educator's line item. Next, employee benefits is about 3.4 million. You see the $287,000 increase there is pretty much the health insurance figure that Superintendent Willard mentioned earlier, along with dental and, the insurances are going up a lot. I did meet with the insurance representative about 2 weeks ago, and She does anticipate this to be like a spike year and then next year it going down again and looking a little bit more normal. If that's any good news, but, right now that 14.26%, is certainly impactful. The next line is your tuition. You'll see goes down almost a little over 1.1 million, and that's a result of the vocational tuition being associated with the towns instead of with the district. The remaining number is our LP-VEC, career tech students, school choice sending students, and our charter school students as well. All that tuition gets paid by the district. You'll see maintenance increases slightly. You saw a $120,000 figure earlier. The reason why that doesn't match this $27,000 figure is because some of that is in the school line items. It's not all district-wide maintenance, but if you total that all up, it would be a $120,000 increase. Student transportation, you see, comes in about 2.3 million. That increased quite a bit, as you'll see. One of the reasons for that is because in this current fiscal year, some transportation money was moved to school choice and some was moved to our Medco grant. But that's not going to be able to be done next year. Superintendent Willard referenced the school choice. The revenue is just not there. I actually looked at our school choice winter claim form today, and we anticipate in this current fiscal year getting about $800,000 of revenue. We're spending about 1.5 million this year, so do the math. That formula didn't work that long, right? So we did have to decrease the use of school choice. So the transportation had to come back into the operating budget. And it also had to come out of the Medco grant as well, because a large portion of the Medco grant is now used to, do some training and work that was a result of everything that happened last year that involved the Attorney General's office. So we can't spend that on transportation anymore. Moving on to insurance, you see that goes up. That's district liability insurance, workers' comp, unemployment, insurances like that the district has to cover. I know that it looks like that's going up quite a bit, but $100,000 of that is workers' comp that before now used to live in the employee benefits line item. And when I was putting this together and trying to figure out what goes where to fit into all these buckets, I noticed that workers' comp that's not an employee benefit. We're not selling people workers' comp. It's an insurance we carry. So I moved that to this other bucket for proper reporting purposes. The amount isn't going up that much, it just looks that way because it's been moved from one place to the other. Technology lease stays the same. Debt service for capital improvement projects at $283,000 goes down because a lot of prior capital improvement projects are nearly paid off. The school building project goes down ever so slightly. There's still plenty of years to go on that. I think 2038 is the year of maturity. So you'll likely see that figure being similar for quite some time. Then we get down to the three schools. Woodland, we're coming in at 2.7 million. Powder Mill coming in at 3.2, and the regional school at 6.1 million. You'll notice that the regional school increase is less than the other two, and that's a result of the staff cuts being really from that building. Special education at 4 million goes up about 287,000. A lot of that is the out of district tuition costs that were referenced earlier, as well as just some contracted services for things that students need. Special education costs are a massive driver across the state right now, and that doesn't show any sign of slowing down anytime soon. Adding that all up together, you come up with the same figure as the revenue figure above, and that represents a 3.32% increase over this current year's operating budget. At the very bottom, just to give you an idea of some of the other funding sources we use, you see our title grants. For FY26, we anticipate a slight decrease in revenue in Title 1, 2, and 4. Medco, slight decrease as well. Our IDEA grants, I think, will go up a little bit just due to the special education cost that we have. ESSER grants, ESSER money's gone. You'll notice, for circuit breaker revolving, we've got $420,000, budgeted to spend next year, and that's almost $150,000 increase over this year. Circuit breaker is basically reimbursement from the state for high special ed costs. So basically we're getting reimbursed for money that we're spending this year on special education. It goes into a revolving fund and we can use it to offset the budget on, pretty much any special education costs that we want to use it for. This year we anticipate getting some extraordinary relief through circuit breaker, which is a special account. Basically, when you have huge expenses you didn't anticipate in the current year, you can get some reimbursement in that current year if the costs are high enough. We do have to spend it by June 30th, which we will have no problem doing. But the good part of that is we can claim those expenses in addition to everything we've already spent for next year's circuit breaker, which will give us more reimbursement next year to use against our operating budget this year or next year. So that's good news. School choice, you'll see we're decreasing by about 443,000 due to reasons that have already been mentioned. And the rural aid school grant, we think it'll be about the same. That's a tough one because it's usually part of a supplemental budget that gets passed at the state level, although it is included in the governor's House Fund proposal this year. So hopefully that stays. That's a huge chunk of the reason why we're going to UMass on the 24th, just to advocate for that. The organizations that Superintendent Willard referenced earlier believe we need about $60 million of funding in that bucket at the state level, and it's currently at $16 million. So there's a $44 million gap in what rural districts believe they need and what they're actually proposed to get at this point. So the advocacy is very important because costs don't show any signs of going down. Before I move on to the assessment sheet for the towns, does anyone have any questions about the summary?
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
So Nick, I just had a question on like the last portion of this, all of the grants and stuff that's in black. How much of this is federally funded?
Title I, Title II, Title IV, IDEA, and that's it. Rural school aid state, school choice is basically paid for by the district that sent students here. So that's state. Circuit breaker is state. Metco is, that's state, right? Superintendent Willis. I've never had a Metco grant in my life, so that was the only one that I was unclear on, but that is a specific Massachusetts state program, and guess we don't get any from the federal government.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. One more. All right, I'm now gonna have you turn your attention to the assessment sheet, and Stephen will put it up there.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so this breaks it down by town. And what each town will pay for an assessment. The very top part, you see the required local contributions. And that comes right from the state Chapter 70 formula. That's based on a lot of factors, including foundation enrollment, as well as various attributes about the students that make up your foundation enrollment. If you total those three together, that represents the $300,000 less than what that contribution was in FY25. A note for members or residents of Southwick and Granville, that does not include your required minimum local contribution for the vocational students that are now affiliated with the towns. So you essentially have two different required local contributions that your towns would be responsible for. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. And in the future, there's any vocational students from Tallinn, you would have them too. The Chapter 78 would be on line 2. And if you add all that together, you get $22,380,680, which is our minimum net school spending requirement for FY26. Other revenues that we anticipate, I'm not gonna go through all that because I've already read them to you and I believe Superintendent Miller did too. But if you total them all up, you get $1.9 million. Adding that to the total net school spending requirement, and our revenues come in at just over $24 million. Moving on to section 3, which are non-discretionary charges to the towns. The dollars here do not count towards net school spending requirements. I think that's noteworthy to mention. Transportation being one of them. What I did is I took the total transportation amount off the summary sheet and I backed the $800,000 from the transportation reimbursement revenue out of that figure, and then did the assessment per the operating budget formula. Debt service for capital, you see capital projects there highlighted, and just underneath you see the MSBA building project. Those two total the same numbers you would see in the summary sheet. You see a $12,000 assessment to just Southwick, which occurs every year for building use. And then line 19, the chapter 74 non-resident vocational transportation line is new. What this would represent is an assessment for transporting the vocational students from Southwick and Granville to their respective schools. When this all came about, I know there was a lot of questions last year, probably during this time. Obviously, I wasn't present for those, but I certainly was briefed. When I came on board, I spoke with LPVEC, and they were trying to figure out what this was going to look like as our transportation provider, but they also don't have an agreement with any of the towns. Their agreement is with the regional school districts as the 7 districts own LPVEC. So we kind of talked and thought the best way to do this would be to just have us assess the towns, the transportation cost, and we would take care of paying that bill and all the administrative work that goes with it. The way I broke this up is not by the operational budget formula. I took the percentage of students from each town that went to each school based on this current year's enrollment, because that's what all of your budget figures are based on, the current year's enrollment. And I basically took the 2 different bus routes and then added those costs together for each of the 2 towns. And that's what that would look like, should you choose to transport your vocational students that way. Other options, I mean, the towns could certainly search for vendors themselves if they wanted to, but I think in terms of ease of operations, it's probably easiest if it's just, if we just do it this way. Oh, sure.
Just as a quick example, we had one student that we needed to provide transportation for, and LPVEC couldn't cover it. So just to transport one student last year was $75,000 for transportation for one special need child. So it's extremely cost effective to go through LPVEC because transportation costs they're much higher than what you would anticipate. So I just need to put that out there that you guys, feel free to go look on your own to find it cheaper, but our experience is that this is very reasonable for transportation costs.
I know it's probably not broken down per student for the transportation costs here, but can you give me an idea of how many students in Southwick, how many in Granville are being serviced for these costs?
30.
Are you referencing the vocational students or just the ones on line 14?
Vocation.
Oh, the vocational.
The line that we're on, the 99,919 and the 54,791.
Yeah, it's 38 and 22. 38 in Southwick and 22. But we broke them up by WTA. So at WTA, there's 30 kids from Southwick and 18 students from Granville.
Yeah.
So 62.5, 37.5. And then at Smith Folk, there are 8 students from Southwick and 4 students from Granville. So 66% and 33%.
Okay.
Yeah, I just took those and added them together to get the total assessment.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Nick, just quickly, those numbers there for out of district folks,
Well,
is
I
that
know
already
that, but
accounting
Next year,
for
if we
those
get 10
reduction
kids.
for
it's going into it.
transportation reimbursement?
That's a separate line item. And that's, the transportation reimbursement gets back out of the cost on line 14.
Right, but when you figured these numbers, was that, because you did it based on students on the route, right?
The,
Vocational tuition, transportation isn't in a regional transportation, it's its own separate reimbursement.
So, but the origin of my question, I guess, is if we do go somewhere else, our transportation reimbursement money should follow those students, right?
no, the transportation reimbursement money is just for regional districts. Like, the towns wouldn't be considered
We
a
won't get
region,
anything.
No.
not for that, no.
Is there a separate reimbursement for out of district regional?
There is a separate reimbursement for out of district vocational students. It's tiny though. I mean, I'm trying to think. When I was in East Hampton last year, I had, I think, 40 students go to Smith. The rest went to LP-VEC, which that was our like contracted place. So for the 40 students that went to Smith Voc, I think we got about $8,000 reimbursement for that, which it's a drop in the bucket, but it's something. When this, I actually was perusing the state website today, looking for stuff like this, and I found like a memorandum from like 2004 when they first started reimbursing for that, and the target was 100%. We're shocked that they're not there, right? Yeah, but yeah, there is a minimal reimbursement.
That helps.
Here goes. So if you total the anticipated revenues from the top plus the non-discretionary, you end up with the $27,777,976 figure that Superintendent Willard had pointed out on our summary sheet. Which brings us to our proposed operating budget of $28,929,812. Backing out the revenue we anticipate, and we come to $1,151,836 in discretionary. Breaking that down by town, on line 1 there, you see the minimum local contributions, which are just the numbers from line 1 at the top. You see all the non-discretionary, which is just the numbers from line 20 in the non-discretionary section. And then if you add the discretionary numbers broken up by the operating budget formula, you see the total assessments being $14,404,483 for Southwick, $398,997 for Tolland, and $2,102,606 for Granville. Going down to the very bottom, you can kind of see the comparison between this year and last year. You'll see Southwick goes up $865,072. Tolland goes down $79,927, and Granville also goes down at an amount of $104,868. That formula is based on the operating budget formula in the regional agreement, which is really taken as a 5-year rolling average of enrollment from each of the towns. The capital breakdown is a 5-year formula. We're due to update it in February of 2027. All right, before we move on, is there any questions about the assessment sheet? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so to conclude our presentation, we do have the capital budget that we are bringing forward. There's some good news, some bad news on it. The good news is we have, yeah, last one, go, right after those green things, yep.
Okay.
Okay, so there we go. You see that we put in for the track at 192,000. We have to do that right now because we're not sure. We did apply for CPC funds. Select Board Member Pro suggested it, was a great idea. So this might not be, it may be partially funded with capital costs. But we're asking for the full 192 for CPC in, the town of Southwick. So we'll see where we, land on that. We can change that right on the, town floor if we need to. And also, Granville and Tolland, you will be having your town meetings ahead of that. So I'm saying this publicly, if you approve $192,000 in the draft, and then it gets changed on the Southwick, town floor, it'll only be an approval for what was approved on the Southwick town floor. So you might approve it at 192, say they give us 100,000, it would only be a 92,000 capital investment, it wouldn't be 100,000. Does that make sense? Okay. And then the other two boiler projects, we were going to bring to you last school year, but we did not bring any capital cost requests, which is why you saw that decrease of $87,000. We had 1 year after 5 years go off, and we didn't have a new year of debt to bring on. So we have a Woodland design for the heating at Woodland School for $103,000. And we have an SRS study and design for $220,000. And then in the next few years, our priority is going to be to replace those boilers once we get some designs and we get a study. So this is kind of like getting all the information forward to bring to you over the next 2 years for the boiler projects. Any questions on that?
Just to back up, because I'm slow.
You are
I
not.
went to ag.
You're just in Key West. That's all.
So that's hitting this year.
Well, this won't be in this year's budget.
Okay,
So all you're going to do is not disapprove us to borrow money. And you will see 1/5 of this in FY27.
okay, 1/5,
1/5,
and then so it'll be 27, 28,
29, 30, 31.
31, so a 5-year project, okay,
So every time we borrow capital, we
Yeah.
borrow it over 5 years.
right,
And so that's how we break it up. But the year we borrow it, it doesn't go into the budget.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Well, thank you. Oh, yes. Okay, yeah.
Sure.
Oh, you can ask whatever you like.
So I know last year we were treating home services and revenue source, that can.
We put it in the budget last year. We got some information. We're thinking we were gonna get some money. By the time they actually did it and went through with it, it wasn't as much money as we anticipated. So that is why, we had $120,000 in the budget for food service. And when, the instructional coach left, we didn't refill that position because we knew we were gonna have to make up that revenue source in this year's budget, which is how we made up for that $120,000 that we anticipated last year in food service.
Those 4 admin positions that you had to.
Yeah.
Are 2 of those the 2 coaches?
No, no. So it was, the high school principal, the Woodland principal, the Outerville assistant principal, and, regional school assistant principal. We took all of those positions out of the operating budget last year, put them in school choice, paid for them out of that. The one that we did keep in school choice, because it was an added position, is Kayla Brady, the Woodland assistant, is a new position. We did not put her in the operating budget. She's still in school choice.
So those other 2 coaches were just always in administration?
They were in general administration.
Okay.
Yes.
I asked my other question. Okay, it's okay. Our SRO position, where is that?
The SRO position is in salary reserves.
So that's in the general.
It's in the general administration for salary reserves,
What did that ever land on cost?
80,000.
Okay. So now my next fun question. Do we have any data that we're looking at yet? Any? Because I mean, I'm looking at, I appreciate what you tried to do with the budget, that it's a tough year for everybody. Trust me. But looking at these teacher cuts, I mean, most of them are less than that. Have we looked at how is that position impacting our students versus, you know, cutting these teachers, cutting these instructional coaches. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, we did look at that. What I'm hearing, it's a lot to do with, these day-to-day things that don't always make the news, but the SROs are like super involved within the school. And they are kind of helping us solve problems like before they get super big. And it's really nice to have the communication, because I know even when we had the issue with some of our families in Granville, like all of the police and the SROs were able to work together to really take what could have been an explosive issue and bring it down and make it doable between the schools and the police. It takes a village to raise kids these days. The students that we have come to us with a lot of trauma. They come with us with issues that we weren't always prepared to handle in school. And so I can tell you from what I've seen, the SROs have both been super busy. I know Chairman Stevenson is going to be asking for them to come in and do a presentation in an upcoming school committee meeting. So we'll have more information then.
Yeah, because I mean, I think that data is super important, you know, especially understanding that they're only allowed by Massachusetts state law to be able to be involved in certain things.
Correct.
Violations of law, not disciplinary things and things like that. So, you know, looking at all of these teacher cuts, that's where I would look at that. And I guess maybe this question is more for the South people in the room. I just want an assurance that that officer is not working.
They don't, as I said to you last year, they can only bill us for the time that the police officer is here. And you can answer that better than I can.
I can't.
It's the 80Ks benefits and all that stuff.
We went over this last year in great detail. There is one officer that the town of Southwick has paid for the past 15 years when they've been here. That is a responsibility that the town has taken on. This second officer, the agreement that we had was that the salary for the officer for the year was going to be borne by the district. That was the cheaper of the three options that we went through. If you would like, we can certainly change that and change it to where both officers are only billed to the district for the time that they are here, which will solve your question that they're not working for the town of Southwick. But your cost,
That's a legitimate question.
oh, I think it's a legitimate question. You asked it last year, you're asking it now this year. If you would like to switch it, the chairman of the finance committee from Southwick is here, and we can switch it, but the cost to Granville will go up.
But again, going back to the conversation last year, our point was that we did the same thing. We provided an officer when we were part of the district full-time.
It was not the same, it's not apples to apples. It wasn't even close.
When our school was a part of the
Understood,
district,
but that's not the
it was
situation we're in now.
down here after our school was closed. So it's unfair to say that Southwick is the only community that provided an officer at
I
their,
didn't say that.
at their cost. Well, that's the implication.
No, I'm saying
Just asking
now,
a question about, because we're paying for the salary and I'm assuming the benefits.
the salary and benefits is included in that rate, yeah?
Right, so that's when things get muddy, like if something were to happen when this officer is doing something for the town of Southwick, well, how does that work?
In order to clarify that, you know what, Joe, at this point, I mean, if those are the concerns that are coming up from Granville, I think we need to look at changing the adjustment so that that question goes away, because I get it, but it's,
That's
we're going
a
over.
legitimate question, like if an officer got injured when he was working for the town of Southwick and his insurance falls under the district. how does-
No, his insurance still falls.
Well,
Sure.
that's my question.
Yes,
That's my
no,
question.
it's still in the town of Southwick. So if they got injured, they couldn't, and they were out, they wouldn't be working for us, so they wouldn't be billed. And it's when they're here at our schools that they bill us.
Well, that was my question, if
Yeah.
we're responsible for all the benefits, if that
No.
$80,000 is.
No, we just paid like their
Their
work,
hourly rate works out to
whatever, yes.
Right.
that 80K?
And that's,
That was my question.
yeah, and that's fine. And that's on the light end, because the deeper we got into the cruiser use, the fuel, it got crazy. So,
Oh, I know.
right, so we decided 80 was just gonna have to work. I don't think it's the real number, but we're comfortable at 80, and that's where we left it. It was just easier, but yes, if he gets injured on the job, that's on Sal. You're paying a rate for an officer.
Right,
That's
that was my
90%.
question.
Yeah, that's how it is.
It wasn't.
No, it's all good. You got my number, you can call me anytime.
But yeah, again, I'm curious about, I would love if that meeting wasn't a Monday so that so select boards could attend that meeting, but when the officers come in and give their presentation.
No, makes it tricky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really tricky. That's why you haven't seen my smiling faces here. I know you've all missed. me.
I agree with that statement. It is difficult on Mondays.
Yeah.
Oh, they miss her.
We're always on YouTube, and then you can always like listen to the presentation, and you could like fast forward through all of us and get to what you want, and
Yes, but it's like nice feelings.
But I do agree that we shouldn't, moving forward in future years, we shouldn't make a scheduling decision that precludes the select boards from any of the 3 towns
All of us.
attending our meetings, right? Like, if all of the select boards meet on Mondays, then when we're making our meeting schedule for next year, like, I think that it would be wise to choose a different day other than Monday, if that's what I'm hearing from all of the select boards.
so if I'm hearing it too, so you don't meet every Monday, am I correct, select boards? Or you meet every Monday?
Except in the summer, we meet every other.
Oh,
Yeah, when you're not here, you would run a lighter schedule.
okay.
Same.
We keep you busy?
Yeah, I guess, I was gonna say that.
We can maybe look at Wednesdays or something like that for next year. I'm flexible. I thought Monday was great because they kind of set the tone and
Yeah,
it was good.
but if everybody's, I mean, the more involvement in this entire process and education throughout the school year, the better. Like, I don't wanna I don't wanna preclude anybody who wants to be here from being here because of our schedule.
And I know what people have school committees on Wednesdays and Thursdays. I'm not doing that. Draw the line there.
And that one.
Okay, Steph.
I just want to introduce myself. I am a Southwick resident. I have worked at the regional school for 16 years. One of my daughters is a 3rd grader at Pennville. The other daughter is a kindergartner at Woodland. So we represent all the schools. I specifically moved my family here in 2021 so that I could be a resident of Southwick, so that my children could go to school in this community. What really worries me, and I've seen this PowerPoint twice, is that why are we operating at 2% above the state's net spending minimum every year? That is the question I feel that we should be asking. If there's 306 districts in Massachusetts, why are we among 29 of the lowest? And as you pointed out, a lot of those school districts are receiving the Student Opportunity Act funding, which mitigates the impact of such constrained budgets. I really feel that the lack of funding towards school is really going to affect our students. We are sitting here today knowing that we are cutting 9 positions, 2 coaches, 7 teachers. Yes, some are retired, but I have personally felt that this year. I have seen an increase in the number of students that I teach every day, which means that I am not able as a math teacher to give my students the one-on-one they deserve. And now knowing that another position is going to be cut in the math department, most likely, I'm very worried for what our math education looks like. I'm worried for this town. I'm worried that this is the town that I picked for my children to receive their education, and knowing that we're only funding 2% above the states is very worrisome.
So I will tell you, I do believe that with this significant 1 million discretionary line item this year that they're going to be approving, we will be above the 102. We usually come in with a very minimal discretionary line item to the maybe 200,000. And that's what gets us to that just above $1 million should take us above the 102. We do receive 4 million in hold harmless. And like I said, this is a reset year. I don't think we're going to see the same impact to minimal local contributions. They're not going to go up to 500,000 again, because simply the vocational kids were included in our foundation aid, and now a portion of that goes to the towns because they have to pay that 1.2 million that we were paying, and rightfully so. They get some of that money back because the kids now belong to them. I'm actually appreciative that when we brought forward a budget with a 1.1 million discretionary, never brought budget forward like that my entire time here. I really haven't gotten any pushback with the Granville Select Board and FinCom and the Southwick Select Board and FinCom. They've been supportive of that. And I do appreciate that this year because I was anticipating more cuts than just where we were with that. But I do understand, and that's why I do bring it up. I'm hoping to see the trend go in the opposite direction.
I think that question really represents a flaw in the state funding formula. That's what it does. Because the problem is the way the formula is designed. Some districts get a lot, some get almost nothing, and as the cost of things go up, especially places like this where enrollment's down, it creates such a burden on the towns, to be able to afford their assessments each year, and they have a lot of balls to juggle in the air as well, in addition to school. It really, what you highlighted is a flaw in the formula, and there is a high level of advocacy at the state level to look at that Chapter 70
Yes.
formula as well, which is another reason we're going to UMass March 24th. So, thank you for that question and comment.
And I will send out to you, Steph, if you want it. I just received a letter today that you can send out to Mass legislators. I will send it out. We just got the letter. I just got it in Word, and it's basically asking for them to look at funding in FY26 and the fair share of FY24 to help districts who are the 233 districts who are strictly in this hold harmless, and they're only getting the minimum per pupil aid. It's incredible when you look at the Student Opportunity Act. 18% of the school districts get SOA money. 82% of us get the minimum per pupil. Something's broken. And that's what we need to be advocating, is at the legislative level. They need to change the funding. And we're taking a risk by putting in rural school aid. That's not a guarantee. That's part of the supplemental budget that could be. But we have to.
So Jen and Nick, just for my clarification, to make sure that I'm understanding the way the process works, as a follow-up to Steph's question, which was a really good point. So unless the state changes their formula that determines what each town pays in, the only way to remedy the issue that Stephanie brought up would be for us to increase our non-discretionary charges to each of the 3 towns. Am I correct about that?
The discretionary.
The discretionary.
Nick, that base number that we're gonna figure that out is gonna be on that number 13, right? Total all revenue before the non-discretionary
Let me just
charges to the town.
The actual formula.
make
Yeah.
sure I'm looking at the same thing that you are.
So if you look at page number 13, the 24,325,161,
Yeah.
that's essentially net school spending that we have to meet, right?
The 22.
Oh, 22. Okay, well, if that's the case, if we look at the 1151, well, it's gonna be easy. 380, 680, we're gonna be at. If these are right, we're gonna be at 105.14. So we're gonna move from 102 to 105 with this budget, the way it's set up, if it's approved.
Yeah, as long as you didn't include the discretionary.
Yeah,
stuff.
right, no.
You're good.
These are all great questions, and I'm happy to see that you're here, because the only way to understand the budget process is to get into the weeds and to get here with us. And I advocate more and more teachers and townspeople come and learn it and start advocating. We need regional transportation funded at 100%. We need rural school aid funded at 60 million and have a plan to get there, just like they did with SOA. And we're gonna be okay if rural school aid comes in.
And I love your idea of the AP Gov kids going with you guys.
Me
I
too.
really hope they do it. I mean, we need to inspire the next generation of youth to understand how this works and get involved. So I think that is a brilliant idea. So kids, if you're out there, please do that.
Well, we've sent a couple emails to Alex today, so hopefully she can get involved. And if any of you would like t-shirts, I have to put the order in today. They're rural schools, we're on the back, Southwick, Sally, Granville. What?
What color are they?
Oh, they're either gonna be hot pink or lime green. We gotta stand out on the 24th. We gotta stand out. We're not blending in anymore. All right, well, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for supporting our schools. Yeah, Joe.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I didn't want to not say anything. So you're at 975 for Southwick. We also budgeted roughly 300,000 for the vocational part of that. Right?
Yes.
So about $1.2 million and change. So
I just looked at the DLS for us, chapter 78 for Southwick is 220 something.
220. Yep, it'll be on the vocational sheet that I gave you guys.
okay, I can finish that. All right. Awesome. All I'm saying is, as you say, there was really no pushback. There is pushback, but as you saw in our finance committee, they do a thorough job when it comes to the school committee. And Saturday, you explained everything. You went through every school, every teacher, every principal, every vice principal, which I think helped. So not that you took power away from us, but the ammunition wasn't loaded because you broke everything down and you did a good job with that, which I think helped. It's still a ton of dough, and I get you want 2% to 4% to 5%. I get you live here. I get you see the potholes, you see all the crap in this town too. So there's only so much money. And I'm not saying it's not fundable, just money's tight. It's just right everywhere.
I know.
So good luck
Ditto to
to
that.
all of us.
Nick came out to Granville on Monday night and did the same thing for us out in Granville.
Yeah,
So,
and
I
it
mean,
did
it
help.
was super helpful.
Yeah.
And we appreciate that.
Thank you for
Awesome
bringing
job.
that up, Joe, because
Yeah.
publicly kudos. to you.
Yeah, and this kid's been great, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's
Absolutely.
not afraid to talk, tells it like it is.
We kept him for almost 2 hours.
He doesn't.
They did too.
So, because you guys you come storming in 5-6 years ago with numbers, la-di-da-di-da, there's a confetti and you leave. And we're all sitting there spinning our head. Now, finally, if I ask for your budget, I get it, and I haven't gotten it yet, so make sure that email goes out.
We got it.
I got it.
I didn't get it.
Oh,
A line on the one with the 35-page one with.
I
all
got
the
it.
line on it?
Yeah.
I asked for it specifically.
I thought I CC'd you on it.
I thought
Oh,
you CC'd
you'll get it
it.
tomorrow morning.
I
Yeah, please.
You and CC?
Same.
I know Nicole, myself, I know. You were.
Doesn't matter, because
we'll get it to you. And if you want the
I will
full stuff,
forward it.
anybody who wants it, it's completely transparent. You can look at it.
thank you.
All right, well, I thank you. I thank all the administrators for being here tonight. They're here to answer any of your questions. Thank you for the teachers who have showed up tonight. I appreciate you being here. And just encourage anybody who lives in Southwick, Holland, and Granville to get involved. And by you being here, you are involved. So I thank you for that. Thank you.
Brought my dad too.
Thank you, voting.
I made her fly.
All right, thank you, everybody. See ya at the town hall meeting, annual town